Sit back and enjoy the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup. Henry urged to go for goal, and she finds it. And they scored! Benyana!
Bonasea again! It's victory for Italy!
Super Z scores for Nigeria! It's a hat-trick! It's a fourth goal for Sam Kerr.
5 for Morgan.
Wow, what a save.
The Netherlands are heading for the round of 16.
Thailand have a goal. You can see what it means on the sidelines.
Jamaica have their first World Cup goal.
Argentina have scored again.
This could send Chile through. Oh my goodness!
Marta makes it 1-0 at a 5th World Cup.
He's on a white. That should wrap it up for England.
And shoots has put Cameroon into the knockout stages of the Women's World Cup. Welcome to the first knockout game. Germany versus Nigeria. And that's a third goal, Lea Schuler.
And side-footed into the bottom corner, and Norway are into the last 8.
And arriving brilliantly with the finish, it's Alex Greenwood. Spain works so hard.
Alistina Blackstenius.
Oh, what a shot!
And she scores in the 90th minute.
Quarter-finals well and truly dominated by European countries. Beth Mead pulls it back. Bronze! England are going to Lyon for the semi-finals, and Norway are going home.
Superstars everywhere you look. And should be 2-0 and is! What a World Cup for Megan Rapinoe. France fall short yet again.
Oh, what a goal! The Netherlands are through to the semi-finals.
Germany are out.
Lovely ball, Morgan. important. Save! The United States have done it. England won, the United States 2. So different faces, different colours, same tension, same prize. Faced in the final. Grennan fires the Netherlands in front! And the European champions are in with a chance of becoming the world champions. Many thousands dream of it, very few achieve it. Penalty. It's Rapinoe. It's 1-0. Lovely run, great goal! Brilliant goal! For the fourth time, the United States of America are crowned champions of the world.
We still get goosebumps, don't we? Yeah. We still get goosebumps. I mean, just looking at those particular highlights, we still remember the emotions and feeling that this was such a watershed moment in women's football. But ladies and gentlemen, why is it that this particular FIFA Women's World Cup evoked such very strong emotions in all of us? Well, that's exactly what it is that we're going to be discussing today as we analyze the FIFA Women's World Cup France 2019. A very good morning, everyone. A special word of welcome to our gracious host today, the man at the helm of FIFA, our president, Gianni Infantino. Very good morning, sir. Special word of welcome to all of you Confederation representatives, to the technical directors that are here, the national coaches that are joining us from all across the globe, to all of you women's football experts, our guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and in totality, football family. You know, I'm South African, and I know Coach Des Ellis, you'll understand this. I can't continue without saying all protocol observed. Now I know that I'm completely covered. Welcome to this FIFA football conference where we'll be looking back at the FIFA Women's World Cup France 2019 and analyzing it. And we'll be doing all of this via a technical study report and hearing from some key individuals within women's football. My name is Carol Shabalala, and I'm very, very proud to be here today as your program director. And this program is also going to require that you all get involved as well as important individuals when it comes to the women's game. And that's why you'll notice that we've given you all iPads. And throughout the program, we'll be giving you opportunities to pose any questions that you might have after a particular discussion or to give us some input. So just make sure that you pay attention to the instructions on your iPads. We've got a really great day planned today, ladies and gentlemen. So let's kick it all off officially by hearing from the FIFA president, Mr. Gianni Infantino. You know, President, it seems like a little bit of deja vu now. Just a couple of months ago, before the FIFA Women's Football Symposium, there was so much that was said and discussed in terms of what to expect at France 2019. Did it exceed your expectations or meet them?
Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, buongiorno a tutti. Welcome to Milan, welcome to Italy. Benvenuti a Milano, benvenuti in Italia. Yes, it exceeded our expectations. It was incredible, it was emotional, it was powerful, it was fantastic, it was simply the best ever World Cup that we experienced.
Let's hear more. You can go to the podium and welcome everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, cari amici, welcome. Welcome, I said it already, here to this beautiful city, this beautiful country, my country, so of course it is beautiful. But since I'm now FIFA president, actually the whole world is beautiful, and this conference, let me add, is particularly beautiful. It's particularly beautiful because it's the first time that FIFA is organizing such a gathering to analyze technically, but not only technically, the Women's World Cup that was just played in France this summer. And when I said right now that this was the best ever World Cup, you might have noticed I forgot actually to say that this was the best ever Women's World Cup. Well, I didn't forget to say it. I didn't say it in purpose, because it's a World Cup, and it was the best ever World Cup in terms of impact and emotion, men and women together. We will speak about that, and you will speak about that during this day, and I hope and I wish that this day will be inspirational and emotional for all of you, as it has been for all of those who were present in France this summer. 24 teams were present, 24 delegations were present. A few of you were there as fans, as spectators. But today we are here, I think around 150, right? Sarai, around 150 delegates from our 211 association. There is still more to do. Next time we have to be 211 out of 211. So there is work to be done. But something is happening, something is going on. And it is obvious that the World Cup in France marks a before and an after when it comes to the women's game. There will be before the World Cup in France, and there will be after this World Cup. And we can look at it simply by mentioning, of course, some facts and figures, and you will speak about it later today, so that you get as well this feeling and this emotion. But we had for the first time over 1 billion viewers for the Women's World Cup. This places the Women's World Cup at the very top of competitions, of sports competitions, of events generally around the world. Of course, the Men's World Cup is still ahead with around 4 billion, but immediately after that, we have the Women's World Cup. For the first time in history, over 1 billion. 1.13 million viewers, spectators in the stadiums. Of course, they were not, unfortunately, full 100%, but over 75% full, which is, again, something very important and which shows an important trend. Great spectacle on the pitch as well. And I think part of the secret for having had over 1 billion viewers around the world was exactly this. Some, or many probably, have tuned into women's football, or women's soccer, as it is called in the country of the world champions, for the first time in their life, because they heard about it, because it's a World Cup, because your country is playing. So you check, you see, you watch. And actually they have been able to see that what is presented on the pitch is real football. It's not just a bad copy of men's football or a black and white copy. It is football. It is football with technical skills. It is football with athletic skills. It is football with heart, with passion, with emotion. And this has finally made sure that we had such great attendance figures and viewing figures. And we, of course, we need to build on that. And let me say, because I forgot to say it at the outset, obviously, congratulations to the United States of America for having won this World Cup. And congratulations, félicitations à la France, congratulations to France for having hosted the world in such a magnificent way. We were speaking about all this before the World Cup. We were saying at the conference just before, on the eve of the kickoff of the World Cup in June this year, well, the World Cup will be great and so on and so forth. But it's true to say that it did exceed our expectations. We had as well, in terms of the football on the pitch, offensive football, almost 3 games, 3 goals, 2.8 goals, I think, per game. So entertaining games. And except maybe for one result, all the games, or the vast majority of the games, were quite tough. Obviously, 7 out of 8 quarterfinalists were European, and this is a message to the rest of the world. You have to work harder, guys. You have to make sure that the rest of the world is coming back on the top where it was in terms of the women's game until previous World Cups. And it's important that we work every day and that we act every day. For the first time in women's competition, we had as well VAR, which was again part of the success story of this World Cup. We cannot introduce VAR for the men's game and not do the same for the women's game. What would you have said, what would the world have said if we had not introduced VAR? It was not easy. Of course it was not easy. It was not easy for the men's game, where we had already at least a few countries with some experience. For the women's game, it was a first, with almost all of the referees experiencing it for the first time. But we did it. We did it thanks to the hard work of our referees team, headed by Pierluigi Collina, and you will hear about it later today. But we did it. We tried, we took a risk, I think a calculated risk, and the result was obviously exceptional, because VAR is obviously helping the referees, and it's obviously helping us to progress. So there were, I think, 535 checks, 33 reviews, and the percentage of correct decisions, thanks to VAR, moved from 93 to 98.5% of correct decisions of referees at the Women's World Cup. 98.5%. It's not 100%. Nobody's perfect. We are working on being perfect, but still, there is still some way to go. But we try. We try and we build. We build and we try, and we need all of you, and that's why my word of thanks is going to all of you for being here. We have to build, and we have to build on the momentum of this fantastic Women's World Cup. And that's why it is important that you are here today. That's why it is important that you are here on the eve of the best awards, where we will celebrate the best players, men and women, or women and men, the best coaches, the best teams. It's important that on the eve of this event, we speak in detail about women's football, about the World Cup, but also about how to use this World Cup to make it grow, to make the whole movement grow all around the world. I know that there are some issues. Of course there are issues. Of course there are debates to be had around the women's game, around the financials, around the organization. But we need to start somewhere. And even though in the past many were speaking, few were acting, now we have to act. And as a matter of fact, in the wave of the success of this Women's World Cup, I presented 5 initiatives that I really would like to push, and I'm speaking here also at our FIFA Council members present, from Vice President Vittorio Montagliani to the other members here, and those who are not present as well, who I hope will hear my appeal, and be sure I will repeat it, especially if I can feel that from this room there is a positive energy and a full support for these proposals. We need to be a little bit brave and a little bit bold if we really want to bring women's football to the next level. And we need to stop copying what we do for men's football simply into women's football. We need to invest, we need to develop, and we need to do this all together. So my 5 proposals were: we have to extend the participants for the Women's World Cup from 24 to 32. We decided actually already, we took this decision, this is already official. For the next World Cup there will be 32 teams and not only 24. This was probably the fastest decision ever in a FIFA Council, but this is something concrete. 8 more teams from around the world will participate in the next World Cup. We'll choose the host of the next World Cup in June of next year. Then I proposed to set up, to create a new competition for a women's World League for national teams of women. Well, that's not actually a new thing, because I proposed this already more than 2 years ago at the FIFA Congress in 2017 in Bahrain. We then discussed this. We discussed this in the summits with all your presidents and general secretaries, and we had a big support. We then brought it back to the Council of FIFA, where it was, how shall I say, put on hold or blocked for some probably sports political reason. I don't know exactly why, but we will bring it back on the table. And we'll bring it back on the table until it will be approved, because we have shown with this World Cup that what we need is women's football and competitions at the top level, but at every other level as well, in order to progress. And what has the most appeal when we speak about the women's game, which is natural, which is normal, is obviously national team football, because this makes the nation invest in football, invest not only financial resources but also human resources. When you see your flag, when you see your country, when you see your shirt, when you see players playing and representing you, then of course everyone is following that. And we have to develop this further, and that's why we'll present again the proposal of a World League for the women's game, because the women's game has to develop all over the world and not only in a few countries. Similarly to a competition for national teams, well, we need to create a World Cup for clubs, because we cannot think that we can seriously develop women's football by only having national teams. We need to have clubs as well. There are, of course, already clubs, but we need to give to these clubs more reason to invest. And more reason to invest is to give them also a scene where they can perform. So I proposed, and I will propose to the Council and to all the member associations as well, a World Cup for the clubs, a club World Cup, a serious club World Cup, a competition which can unite clubs from all over the world every year, starting next year or the year after next. Let's see how much time it takes us. I don't think it takes us a lot of time to create a competition and to organize it. In rotation, all around the world, from one continent to the other with maybe 16 or 24 teams like for the Men's World Cup from all over the world who come together, who play for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks during a season in order to showcase the best of the women's game. With players coming, of course, from all over the world, with clubs coming from all over the world, showing what women's football, or again, if we do it in the States, women's soccer can bring to the public. So this was the third initiative. The fourth one concerns the prize money and the payments. And yes, even if for the World Cup in France we increased from 15 to 50 million the money which was paid to the participating teams, there is still a gap which is too big compared to the men's game. This obviously as well is linked with the difference in revenues, which is huge. But it's also huge because of our responsibility. It's our fault that we didn't commercialize and market the women's game in an appropriate way. We have to start doing that. We don't have to conclude sponsorship contracts with our sponsors and tell them, here you have this great competition, which is the Men's World Cup, and by the way, you can get the women's one kind of for free. No, we have to commercialize it differently, and we will start doing that now, and we have now the good excuse because we have shown how important the women's game is with this World Cup, with viewing figures which were incredible, and this is appealing to the sponsors. When we see that, I don't know, an England game, the first England game at the World Cup, had more viewers in England than the Champions League final of the men with 2 English teams. When we see that the Brazil national team of women had more viewers in Brazil than the Brazilian national team of men playing the Copa America. When we see that the women's national team in Italy had more viewers than the men as well in the qualifying games for the European Championship, we can see that there is something happening, and this has to be marketed properly, and this again will allow us to increase the prize money. So we will at least double the prize money, but certainly also bring it in connection with the revenues, and if the revenues are extraordinary, well, then the prize money will certainly be even more or much more than doubled. In order to generate revenues, we have to invest as well. We said, according to our plan, and we presented this at the conference in Paris early June, that in the next 4-year period we were going as FIFA to invest $500 million in the development of the women's game. Well, thanks God, or thanks to hard work as well, or fortunately, FIFA is in a very solid financial situation. And this allows us to invest even more than $500 million in the women's game. And one of my proposals as well to the Council will be to use part of the reserves that FIFA has, which are at record height of $2.7 billion, to use part of that to invest in the women's game. So we are not going to invest $500 million. We are going to invest $1 billion in the women's game in the next 4 years, because only if you invest, you can seriously expect growth. And we have to be the first one believing in the game. We have to be the first ones believing in the impact that we can have in the world. And that's why we need to invest, and I hope that the Council and then ultimately the FIFA Congress will, of course, follow these proposals. There are other proposals that were made. There are proposals that you can make as well. We are open for anything. The president of the French Football Federation, for instance, at the press conference where I announced these five plans, these 5 projects for the women's game, propose a 6th one, which is also an interesting one, which is why wouldn't we play the World Cup every 2 years instead of every 4 years? Why do we have to do the same as the men? Why can we not do something different to the men's game? Well, why not? Why not? Let's discuss, let's debate, let's see what makes sense for the game, not for FIFA, for a confederation, or for associations, or for clubs, or for players, but for the game, for everyone, for the globality, for men and for women. And obviously, as you know, for myself, I am absolutely not objective when I speak about women's football and women in football. I have to declare this openly. I have a big conflict of interest since I have 4 daughters. So obviously, if I don't defend the cause of women and of women in football, I cannot go back home anymore. So I need to push that, but I do that as well wholeheartedly. And it is important that you believe in it as well. And it's important for me as the FIFA president, for us as council members, to feel from you if we are on the right path or if you think we should change something. And it's important for you to give us your honest opinion and your honest feedback, and we will factor it in our plans and in our ideas. And it's important, I still see many men here in the room, which is great, also many women, which is great as well. It is important to embrace women, not only women's football, but women in football more generally. I proposed, as you know, for the first time in 112 years history of FIFA, a woman as Secretary General of FIFA. We have 3 women in the management team of FIFA. We have 6 women in the FIFA Council. Before it was 1 in the Council, 0 in the management team. So it's important that we involve women more in our sport. And as a symbol, maybe a little bit, for the women's movement in our sport, I would just like to conclude. I'm sorry for being a bit long, but for things I'm passionate about, it carries me a little bit away. I would like to mention the situation in Iran. You have been certainly hearing or reading about the situation in Iran, and we have been discussing over the last year or so with the Iranian authorities to allow women to go to football games. There is women's football in Iran. We have women's football representatives here from Iran, and this is great. But we need Iranian women as well to be able to attend the men's game. And we need to push for that with respect, but in a strong and forceful way. We cannot wait anymore. We have been assured that as of the next international game of Iran, which is to be played on the 10th of October, women will be allowed to enter football stadiums. This is something very important since 40 years that this was not happening, with a couple of exceptions. But it's important to move to the next level and to the next stage with, of course, our thoughts to all the women of Iran, but also all the women around the world. So again, thank you very much for being here. I wish you a fantastic day here today, a great, the best awards ceremony tomorrow for those who stay along, and continue the great work. You can count on us, you can count on the whole FIFA team. We are here for you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the day. Thank you.
Grazie mille, Presidente. Well, rest assured, President, that all of us here in this room and scores of millions others across the globe are very much a part of this fight. We're very well invested when it comes to the women's game and playing our part in terms of taking it to the very next level. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking forward to a great day, a wonderful program here today. We're almost 150 countries represented in this room, so great diversity, and that's what we love about the beautiful game, right? Brings so many individuals together. We are all united in our love for the game. Everyone has one objective here, though, and that is to develop women's football and take it to the very next level. So use this opportunity to share, to interact, and of course, to meet some of these individuals that are here in the room. We know that you'll enjoy the program and you'll benefit from some of what it is that you'll be hearing. Speaking about the program, so what have we got lined up for today? Well, we'll start off, ladies and gentlemen, by hearing of the findings of the technical study group, and we'll be doing this via facts, figures. We'll be talking about the trends and tendencies as well. We'll be paying tribute to the world champions, the United States of America. We'll be hearing from coaches from all over the world that are here today via a coaching forum. And then we'll have a mini podium discussion covering various different topics. So a very exciting day indeed. Would like to welcome all of those that are joining this event via our live broadcast. And we're doing that via live streaming on FIFA.com and on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome. So let's set the tone for the rest of the day's discussions, shall we? We'll be getting a presentation of the technical study report, and this will be delivered by Branko Ujevic from FIFA. After that, you'll meet your other moderator for the day. Branko, come on up.
Thank you. So, before Women's World Cup started, we spoke about first ever conference in September that is coming. After the final whistle at the World Cup, people started to talk, TV pundits, experts, coaches, about the best ever Women's World Cup. So we didn't have any choice. I called my team and I said, clear, we have to build the best technical report ever. And I'm proud to say we did it. So here, since 1966, in FIFA's technical study group, try to observe, try to evaluate, try to bring these tournament trends live. So here we have 105 pages of football informations, technical informations, tactical informations, team setups, physical data. So moving forward, this report is online report, which means is accessible, which means is clickable. And all video materials are there. So we prepare some new things here in the report that I will show you later on. But in general, in tournament observations, we have a few topics. So let's take a look, what are we going to talk about later? So in technical observations, we have goal analysis. After that, we have building from the back topic. Then we are coming to player movement and rotations topic. Next one is winning the ball back. Then is coming attacking transitions. After that, of course, we have a goalkeeping specialist, so we'll talk about the goalkeeping in the afternoon. And for the first time in the report, we have a section, players that dare to shine. So these are the 10 players that we observed during the World Cup presented themselves and their countries on the highest level. But what is completely new in this report, and we have never done before, is that we have on every single video clip in tournament observations 3 different camera angles. So 3 different camera angles means you are always seeing one situation from one corner. But then coaches, educators, experts, mentors, they would like to see the same situation from different angle. So we used 5 different angles. In total, we choose 3, the best one, and then we put in every single video clip. So could we see how it looks like in live? So here we have a main tactical camera. All of the clips we have inside drawings and illustrations. Also here, for example, this is the one video clip from effective use of space, and then it's coming to tactical camera behind the goal. So same situation from different perspective. This is exactly the player's perspective. So here you can see fantastic execution. And then in this case, third one is a 16-meter or offside camera, where you can again take a look from different angle at the same situation and work over and over again. So, moving forward, we scrutinized all 24 teams during 52 games in 31 days. And then we put these informations in the team profiles. Every team has 2 pages of team profiles where we are reflecting on some tactical informations, technical benchmarks, and physical. So this section needs your close attention when you are reading, because later on you will do what we are always doing, comparison. So let's take a look at the first page, how it looks like. Here, of course, winner takes all. We have a France team. And here you can see on your left side, there are match highlights. So whenever you click on the game, you will go to the match highlights from FIFA TV. And on the right side, you have a tech coach and the technical staff. So what is coming on the second page is some tactical information. So here we build the team compactness in and out of possession. So you can see exactly every 24 teams on average how they were positioned in and out of possession. But here we have an explanation video that will exactly tell you what is meaning here. So please, can we take a look? So here we are talking about team in possession and how they are covering space in 4 different metrics. First one is team compactness in possession. Second one is deepest defender position in possession, team width in possession, and team length in possession. And then we are moving to out of possession team. Here you have exactly illustrated and drawn team compactness out of possession, deepest defender out of possession, team width out of possession, and team length out of possession. So here on every page you have this guideline video that will explain you what is in, so that you can reflect on the numbers over there. But then from these tactical things we are moving to technical. So here for every single team you have, from technical side, team passing accuracy, goalkeeping, defensive line breaks, attacking entries, attacking against in final third and in penalty area, attacking entries against, bypassing the opponents and own plays bypassed, percentage of final third entries that are leading to shot. Many technical informations here, so you can clearly take a look and see first what is the benchmark, So here, if you take a look closely, wherever you see the trophy, that is the USA team. So they are the benchmark. So you can see your numbers against USA, against the winning team. And next to, and there is in the legend, is written, is a tournament average. So for every detail inside, you can compare your team against winning team and against tournament average. So after tactical, technical informations, let's move to the tracking one. So for every single team is the same process. You have these thresholds on your left side, so where you can see the runnings between 07, 7, 13, 13, 19, 19, 23, and above 23 kilometers per hour. And below you can see exactly the winning team again and the tournament average, and then it's coming your team calculation. So, and on the right side you can see the total distance, distance above 19 kilometers, distance above 23, and number of activities. So you can do calculation and see number of activities comparing to distance covered. Okay. Section performance insight. In this section, we try to put it closer to you that you can just see exactly where your team is positioned. So, as an example, here you can see team length in possession. So here we put all 24 teams, team length in possession and team length out of possession average. And you can see how they were compact in the depth. So not in the width, in the depth. We have in the width, we have all these informations here in the performance insight section that are comparable. The next section in the report are individual awards. Here we are talking about tournament goldens. So tournament goldens are golden ball, golden boot, golden glove, the best young player, and we have at the end FIFA Fair Play Award, which means here is again linked to some videos. So for example, if we have Megan Rapinoe as a winner of the golden ball and golden boot, you have some highlights of Megan Rapinoe here. So you always, where there is a sign for a video, you can click it and then you will receive this and see this video materials. So now I'm really proud and honored to say that technical report from FIFA Women's World Cup 2019 is officially live. Yeah, but the question is, who is behind this report? Because we have fantastic experts in-house, and we are in possession to bring fantastic experts from outside. So now I would like to call the video to see who is behind this technical report.
The TSG role throughout the tournament is multi-purpose. We're looking at analyzing all the games and trends, observations, and looking at the data. What does the data tell us? And then coding video live. And so we will take video and match it with the observations and match it with the data. This will give us a better understanding of what we've learned in France 2019.
So now I would like to call on stage the women who lifted the first World Cup trophy in the history. She won a gold Olympic medal as a coach, and she was a head of technical study group at the Women's World Cup in France, simply April the 1st. Please, warm welcome to April Heinrichs.
Thank you, Branko. Thank you.
So, coaches used to say, it's not about the ages, it's about the quality. And here we are talking about the quality, because she won Euro, she won the Champions League, she is current head of women's football in UEFA, and she is FIFA Golden Ball 2014. Please welcome to Nadine Kessler. As we are doing analysis, it's logical that we have in place full-time game and performance analyst. Today he is going to support them here on the stage with some interesting data that are confirming what we observe in the tournament observations. So please welcome to Chris Loxton. And she's coming from England. She's so passionate about women's football. She's not coming alone on the stage. I would like to call Kirstin O'Sullivan +1.
+1.
Is it +1?
Thank you very much, Fanny.
Please.
Thank you. Great. Oh, it's so exciting that the report is now live. We have a lot to talk about, and we're delighted to have April and Nadine here. So, just talk us through, summarize, if you will, April, what you plan to share with us during this session.
Yeah, as Branko mentioned, we want to share with all the people in here some great video and the analysis with the video. We'll share some of our observations. We're going to look at a lot of heading. You're going to see a lot of video of some great heading, because that's certainly one of the things that we observed in this World Cup compared to previous World Cups. The heading was just outstanding. And we'll also see some great goalkeeping. Later on in the afternoon, you'll see some great video of this goalkeeping. We also thought that the goalkeeping was outstanding. And talk about transition and transition moments, and the execution of that transition. And in the end, what we're highlighting, hopefully, is these brave coaches and the brave women that played in this World Cup, which I think we can say is the most accepted and respected World Cup we've seen to date.
Nadine, what do you hope to achieve in being here today and being a part of this discussion?
Well, first of all, I hope everybody is happy when leaving this room with a big smile, because we just talked football. This is I think, the best message ever, because I think sometimes also in the scope of women's football, we tend to talk about many benefits of the game outside the actual football. And I think it's time to acknowledge that exceptional sporting quality, and it's also time to pay tribute to all of you here who made that happen, and yeah, prepared for this.
Very well said. We do have a lot to talk about. The first subject that we're going to talk about, let's just crack on, goals scored, and we have some interesting data around that, April, don't we?
Yeah, we do. You'll see up above us, and Chris and I will share the responsibility, as well as Nadine, in trying to explain it if it's nuanced, but this one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We see in 2011 that 86 goals were scored, but remember, just 16 teams there. And then we saw in 2015 and 19 that the goals went up to 146, both the same. And you can see there, as our president mentioned, that it's 2.8 goals per game. So we see it's actually the same as the previous World Cup. So then we ask ourselves as a group, in what ways then was this more spectacular? In what ways was this World Cup more attacking minded? Because we certainly felt during the tournament it was an attacking minded tournament, and that the players and the coaches were playing to win. They were playing to go get goals. They were going to get goals as early as they could. So we saw that, felt it. We left the World Cup feeling it. Then we saw this data and we went, oh. Oh. But actually, I think we can share some more observations, and my man Chris here will share some data that we think supports our original feeling that it was spectacular.
Absolutely. But then Pascal told us it was the good goalkeeping that, you know, ensured that the number didn't increase even more, right, Pascal?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the importance of the first goal now. Chris is, he's going to be backing up all our observations with data. Welcome, Chris.
Thank
We're
you.
delighted to have you with us.
Can I just say also just before what a privilege it is for an analyst to be sat on stage with two greats from the women's game. So thank you very much for the opportunity today.
And while we pat ourselves on the back real quick, I just want to also mention Babette, Clementine, and Sunny are sitting in the front row. They had as much to do with all of these observations. And they had some of the best quotes. And it was great to have, we have Nadine, Sunny, the player of the century, Clementine with her French accent in France. It was great to work with all of these. So here we go.
There we go. So if I just reflect on this slide then. So we saw that it was actually the same number of goals in 2015 and 2019. But if we look at this, we're talking about when a team scored the first goal, did they win the game? So in 2011, we can see 75% of the games were won by the team that scored the first goal. In 2015, that reduced down to 71. But then if we look at this World Cup, we're up to 87%. So percentages are great, but if we put that into number terms, that's nearly 9 out of 10 games. So 9 out of 10 games at this Women's World Cup were won by the team that scored the first goal. And if we then look at the first goal time, from 2015 to 2019, that first goal was actually reduced by 5 minutes. It's been scored 5 minutes earlier. So the importance of this first goal, certainly in this Women's World Cup, was really critical.
Yeah.
It was critical. It was, when you can score the first goal, coaches, players know that you put pressure on the opponent. Fans love when the goal is scored in the first half rather than waiting to the 80th or 90th minute. And what we've seen, this is such an interesting statistic. I don't know that I've ever seen this kind of a statistic where goals are being scored earlier and so early. I think we know that the US always got off to a good start. Our coach Jill Ellis always says, start fast, finish strong. I certainly think that mantra played itself out during their games. 13 minutes was their average of first goal scored. And then to see the time being reduced significantly, it puts so much pressure on the opponent that then what we get is an end-to-end game. Because no one, the team fighting for a result starts right away. Nadine?
Absolutely, I think you've summarized it perfectly. The first impression counts in life and on the pitch. I think that's what we saw with those stats. And it certainly dictates the flow of the game, has a crucial impact, and not just easy for the opponent to take that a clear weapon also for future tournaments.
Fantastic. Just before we move on to the next topic, you do have iPads. Nadine and April will be taking some questions from you at the end of this session, so do feel free as we progress through this session. If something comes to mind, get it on the iPad, get the question to us, please. Okay, we're moving on now. There was a marked increase in the amount of goals scored from the head during this tournament. We're going to get into this topic in a little more detail now, and we can start with some video.
So this is a video that we selected of the Netherlands. And you can see this little combination on the flank. Ooh, did I miss it?
No, I think it's frozen.
Just roll that back. Yeah.
There we go.
Can you roll that back? Are we able to roll it back?
Yeah,
or
we'll get a replay on that.
Well, our apologies. I think what you saw here is two great goals from two different countries. And what we were able to see in there is dynamic headers where the women are getting up and attacking the ball. They are absolutely attacking that ball. If we have any chance to show one of those headers again, that would be great. Christian's header, I believe, is voted one of the best goals of the tournament. But the way that she extends her body, gets her head up, gets above the ball and snaps it, you can see her twist her entire body. And this is one of the evolutions of the women's game, is that we are snap heading with power and on the frame to create one of the most spectacular moments in the game. Is you dream of that, right, Nadine? Scoring a header from a great cross, you dream of that your whole life as a player. And so many of our players in this tournament had that dream realized with the great headers.
Absolutely, it's been an obviously improved skill, and I think also the scene, unfortunately, we couldn't see with the Netherlands. It was a scene that was studied inside out to come to such a perfection, to finalize your finish and delivery in the way they did in those scenes. It takes a lot of repetition, repetition, and repetition. And I think that's also what ultimately created the result we've seen at the World Cup.
And you know, going back to the first Women's World Cup, if I could go back to the black and white days of video when...
Please do.
Yes. There was always one really good header woman in the tournament that dominated the air. And in this tournament, it's not one player, it's every team had one or two that were so good in the air. And we didn't highlight it in the video, we can't possibly show all the video, but we also have some amazing headers on the defensive end of the game. And not only were they scoring goals, like Renard, but they were dominant in the air in terms of reading the flight of the ball, timing of getting up, and it's hard to play over teams now.
So you'd say that heading has really evolved, not only as a way to score,
yeah.
April, yeah.
One of the most dramatic improvements in the game, for sure.
Nadine, dead ball or open play, coaches like to say that delivery of the goal is clearly, it's only 50% delivery of the goal score, so it's not conclusive. What is it about that? Is it players' practice? Is it, is it talent? What is it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think it's a little bit what I just said. It's about the repetition, the practice, and it's obviously a combination of things that is required. Technical skills that are then going to be perfectionized through the practice, through the repetition, and also, in the end of the day, a lot of confidence to take that finish, to be in the right space at the right time.
Great. Chris, I think you've got some data for us on this, don't you?
Yeah, so we went through and we actually have the data on how many goals were scored with the head. So we can see here in 2011, okay, we already said it was 16 teams, so less games was 20 goals. In 2015, we saw 23, and in this Women's World Cup, we saw 27 goals scored by the head, which was 18% of the total goals scored.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to move on to another important facet of the game, which is effective use of space. Let's play this video.
Let's play the video. So we tried to highlight, just here, one clip. We have England against Japan. Hopefully we can stop it at the key moment, whoever's driving our video today. Right here, you see 4 players surrounding 1 English player. It looks like a pretty tight space, and yet today's players are able to play in and play out of this space. They're on the half turn. They have vision of where they're going, awareness of where they're going, spatial awareness. The pace, the pass, and the angle it's played at and where it's played is perfection under pressure in a World Cup. And then the first touch. We're going to see this twice, I hope. The first touch is magical, and the run behind. I'm sorry, Asa. I'm sorry to show this video, Asa, but it's such a great clip of tight space, and these players executed at a remarkable level.
What observations in general stood out for you during this Women's World Cup in terms of use of space, April?
The speed of the pass, the confidence with players with 1 touch, 2 touch, the spatial awareness. Their body shape was always open to the field. They had clear vision of the pressure. And then that soft touch when a soft touch was needed, that feel for the ball in those tight spaces.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and I practice for this word, I think, 3 days. Peripheral, was it right? The peripheral vision of the player is what is key also in that situation we saw with Carney here. Maybe we can see the video again. I think it's her attitude, it's her eye contact she has with her teammates. It's the open position to receive the ball at any time.
Can we see that video again, actually? Yeah, that's great. Okay.
She's always connected. She's always trying to find that space. She's always looking over her shoulder and really trying to be available to receive that pass. And this vision, this peripheral vision, which is really not an easy word, it is something you just develop if you have your tactical, physical, and technical skills perfectionized. If you have this, you don't need to worry. You have time to think, to read the game, and then you have time to find the right space to be in.
Yeah, the level of game reading ability during this Women's World Cup was incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, and with teams pressing quicker, right? You've got to play, it's hard to play through them. With teams being more athletic and fitter, it's hard to play around them. As I mentioned already, with teams better in the air, it's hard to play over them. With goalkeepers supporting behind the play, it's harder to play through them. So now all of a sudden, the attack has to get better, and what we've seen in this World Cup is the players in tight space was superb.
We do have some fascinating insights now from Chris on team shape.
Yeah, so as we already saw in the video, just in this session before, we measured the size of the shape. We measured this in possession and out of possession, and it's always fascinating to see all 24 teams in the tournament laid out on one graph. So we can see here on the top, we have the team shape in possession and the size of that shape on the field. And then also in the bottom graph, we see the out of possession, and you can actually see where the teams moved from when they had the ball to when they didn't have the ball. And I know, April, you have some interesting points on this one.
Yeah, I mean, as you process this here right now, as you process it when you go through the book, and you're able to watch some of these games and look at, as Bronco said, the compactness in possession and out of possession. What stood out to us was 3 of the top 4 finalists were in the top 4 here. And you can see that the Netherlands, for example, their in possession shape was massive. We saw at times they had 3, 4, and 5 players on their front line. So their attacking shape in possession was just massive. And that team's positional awareness and position play was sophisticated. I mean, they moved the ball, and their understanding of their roles in their system was remarkable. And then you look at out of possession. The shape wasn't very different. Wasn't very different at all. So they're playing in the attack and in defense, almost in the same general space, as we say, square space, or what do you call meters here in England?
Squared, yeah.
Did that really surprise you, April?
It is. As a coach, it's shocking. It's shocking that the attacking shape is almost the same as the defensive shape. And maybe that's what we can say as one of the nuggets that we uncovered about why this was such an attacking, why we had that feeling of such an attacking, aggressive, proactive approach by most of the teams. Most all the teams, right?
Indeed, nothing to add. Ladies and gentlemen, you must also know, we agreed before the show that I'm just a German that throws in a few words and is being abrupt, and April will run the show. So please enjoy her excitement.
You have plenty to add, plenty to add. We have lots to talk about on the next topic, which is set play goals. And first, we do have a little bit of video for you.
Yeah, back to the headers. This is Kadisha Buchanan from Canada. 2 great angles on this header. I mean, here's a woman getting up, getting over her defender, and smashing this with her head. And I love this angle. Boom! She snap heads that, it bounces down. That's a clear sign of great technique. When it goes down towards the goal line, great technique by Kadisha.
Set pieces played a pivotal role in this Women's World Cup, didn't they?
They did. They always do, right?
How much preparation goes into them for a tournament on this scale?
It depends. I mean, a national team coach sometimes only has 3-4 days before they have an event. Then they have to play a game. So they prioritize attacking, they prioritize defending, and then set plays, right? But they know, we know, everybody in football knows set plays are so important. And so I think what happens is, yes, coaches spend time on the set plays, players spend time on the set plays, and then players understand this is a moment for them to step up. And so that technique is perfected over hours and days and weeks and tens of thousands of hours practicing a set play or practicing heading or practicing the timing of their jumping. So what we're seeing is the rise of a specialist. The specialist in women's football, right?
Indeed, indeed. The importance of set plays is undeniable. I think it's game-changing. We have in a second a few more stats to back this up. It's really, really a really important one. And I think also, yeah, physically, mentally, you are prepared for it. I think players are ready for it and are aware of the importance to be always there, to be always switched on.
Ask you, Nadine, how hard is it to maintain focus? You know, from a physical, from a psychological perspective in the latter stages of a game during a tournament like this. How difficult is it?
You know, of course, it's very tiring to play such a high-intensity tournament, and if you've got many games, it takes you a bit to keep up your concentration. But I believe strongly, generally, in set plays, you're so programmed, you're so well prepared that it's your job to be ready anytime, no matter at which stage of the tournament or game. And I think also in this World Cup we had, I think, nine goals only in the last 15 minutes. So, which is also a sign that actually players were concentrated. Yet in this example, of course, it was a nice header, excellent goal, but also I think Cameroon, I think, was the other team in this respect. It was not a fact of being tired or not focused. They were just too focused on the ball and not keeping an eye on where the opponent comes in. So a different reason why this goal happened.
And I would say, on the whole, you have to credit the coach for creating an environment or a structure for the players to work on their set plays, and then all credit goes to the players, because we know late in the game, concentration can go down, but it also can go up, right? That's when you can get these goals. We also saw some great specialists. I'm looking back to the World Cup, and I'm thinking about Wendy Renard for France in the opener, unbelievable. I'm thinking about Rapinoe, right? How many of her goals were actually on set plays? And Marajan's been a presence for Germany. She's been the great specialist for you all, and Hermosa is a specialist for France. So we have a lot of Spitze. I think that's how you say the great Dutch number 8.
Spitze.
Spitze. She is a specialist for them as well.
Indeed, we do have some interesting data around set play goals. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you. So as we always do with the technical report, we go through the goals and we decide how many goals came from set plays. So here we can see in 2011, 21% of the goals came from set plays. In 2015, it went up to 33%. And in this Women's World Cup, we were at 27, which is just over one set play goal for every 4 goals scored.
Any other thoughts on that, or are you happy to move on?
I kind of think we could say further evidence that the goals were scored in open play, right? Rather than on the dead play, so yeah. Super.
We are going to talk now about defenders and building from the back. So we start with some video on this for you.
Yes, exactly. Building up from the back here. Italy in possession. The centre-back passes to Gamma, the other centre-back, who then realized there's no option. So she's dribbling the ball forward in that space to draw the opponent out. And with one pass, Italy crosses the lines and is in a really, really good position to score. I think this example is really something that needs to be highlighted. The role of centre-backs in this World Cup was crucial. And to play such a vertical pass in that moment where the pressure increases across 2 lines, that it is that precise, takes not only coolness, but also a bit of technical skills.
Yeah, this position has really evolved during this Women's World Cup, hasn't it?
Absolutely. As I just mentioned, I feel like the centre-back's attitude has changed. It's a different mindset. They had absolutely control over managing their defensive height, yes, but they were the first person to really think of what can we do to get to the goal as close as possible. If we talk about goalies sometimes as the first attacker, I think it's worth also saying this centre-back with the technical skills they've shown can clearly be described as the first playmaker in the game.
So we do have some more video for you now.
We do. Yeah, I'll just, while we're waiting for that next video, I'll just mention, we had a lot of discussion about whether the center backs were playmakers now. The coaches are asking more of them.
Yeah.
They're more skilled, they're two-footed, they're deceptive. You saw in Nadine's clip that Italy was sort of dribble penetrating and drawing the first defender and being creative. And then in this clip, you see, I think it's twice. Yep. The U.S., Abby Dahlkamper here is opening her body from a great distance, taking a longer first touch and driving a 40, 50-yard ball, I don't know how many meters, and Creighton playing over the top, over the, you know, with this diagonal pass. And so the demands on center backs now to be able to play the longer diagonal ball, to play creatively, deceptively. Are they playmakers today?
And by the way, one of the nicest goals of the World Cup.
And by the way, one of the nicer goals with the head, once again. It's pretty exciting. I'm really interested. It's on all the coaches in the audience. I'm really interested what we're going to be talking about center backs in 4 years from now, or maybe 2 years, Mr. President.
It's really fascinating to see how the game is actually evolving, how it's changing.
Yeah, I might like to be a center back now if I was to come
right?
back. Yeah, why not? You can
Come
be
on,
controlled.
April,
It's
come
like
on, no, that wouldn't work with you. That wouldn't work with you.
Chris has some interesting data for us on possession now.
Yep, so we always know that in football, when we watch football on TV, we see ball possession. But what we've actually done in this report is split that ball possession down in the thirds of the pitch. So if we see here possession in the own third, or as April, you would talk about your own defensive third, in 2011 was around 33%. In 2015, we went to 34%, and in this Women's World Cup, we went up to 35%. So this means that teams are spending longer in their own defensive third, building with the ball when they had possession. And just to add to that as well, if we then look at the percentage of passes that were played long from the teams, we can see year on year a 1% decrease. So now in 2019, 9% of passes, of the total passes that a team made, were played long, which means the rest are either short or medium length.
Yeah, I think it's an example of the coaches having confidence in their players to play out from the goal kick, build out with patience, change the point of attack, change it again, be deceptive, probe a little bit into the midfield, get it back, build again, and build from the defensive third into the midfield third, with patience, creativity, and sometimes even some urgency. But what we are also seeing with this data is shorter passes. Obviously, by the previous clips, we can still see that teams have the capability to play the longer pass, but with this shorter pass data, we're seeing that the build-out is becoming a major foundation of building their attack, from the first attacker to the first playmakers.
Exactly.
Just going back to what you were saying earlier about goalkeepers, building from the back often starts with the goalkeeper, doesn't it? So we do have some more video for you on that.
Nadine, this is one of the youngest goalkeepers in the tournament from Chile, Endler. Takes a touch deep in her 6-yard box, changes the point, plays a medium-range pass with her opposite foot.
Sorry if I interrupt, but what is also crucial in this moment, and maybe we can see it again, is actually her pre-orientation. So there is that one look where she now looks over her shoulder and she knew exactly before she received the ball where the ball is going to go next to. And I think that's something, don't go into details, look over again to our goalkeeper colleagues. But it was something that it was really unique. The goalkeepers are connected, and this pre-orientation has also underlined this. And again, I think also from our side, it's worth paying also sometimes tribute to the goalkeepers. It was the most criticized topic in the past, and Pascal and Michel will surely provide you with the most exciting show today, no pressure. But the goalies deserve credits for their performance, and to be honest, I was always the worst with them. I always argued with them, and I was always hard on them, so I like to give something back right now.
Yeah. Karina, you give it back. In my lifetime, I'm not sure I would ever say goalkeepers would be two-footed. In my lifetime. But here we are. Goalkeepers are two-footed now. They're playing out, they're changing the point, they're playing short. Next time they're going to start dribbling or playing with the outside of their feet.
Scoring goals.
I'm going to roll over in my grave when a goalkeeper plays with the outside of her foot.
How important is the keeper in building that offensive strategy, April?
Yeah, she's becoming a dynamic personality, as Nadine said, the first attacker. And it is really amazing to watch these women. I mean, I've been around long enough. They're almost girls to me, some of them, right? Because they're so young, and this goalkeeper from Chile is so young, and she's so good. I won't even mention her feet and shot stopping and all of that, that she was amazing in the shot stopping.
Yeah, very impressive.
Yes.
And we do have some data as well. Of course, this is FIFA. We've got data on this. Over to you, Chris.
Yep, so we've got some really interesting stuff, and actually Pascal's going to present quite a bit of goalkeeper data later, but one of the main ones that really stood out, just supporting this topic, was actually, if we see here from 2011 to 2015 to then 2019, so from 15 to 19, we see a 10% increase in the number of, or the percentage of passes that goalkeepers are making short, and I think it really supports what you were just saying.
Brilliant.
It does. Anything to add? No, it's...
Anything more to add?
Evidence.
We'll leave the rest for Pascal this afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
It speaks for itself.
It does.
Yeah, we don't want to cross over. Just another reminder, we will be taking your questions after the session. April and Nadine will be answering a few questions for you. You have iPads there. Please do use them. If there's anything that sparked your interest and you want to put a question to April or Nadine, get your iPad out, and yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So just a reminder there that we'll be doing that at the end of this session. All right. So next up, we saw plenty of up-tempo games during the tournament with great player positioning. Here are a couple of highlights for you.
So you're going to see Brazil here build on the left flank. And we saw this with almost every team, this interchange of positions, this chemistry of three, the movement, the dynamic movement to replace each other, to interchange with each other, wide players coming in centrally, central players going out wide. And in the actual report itself, there's some great clips that are more like this, and you'll see them. I think you'll love them. And this was perhaps the most fascinating part of the World Cup for me, is how teams are doing. They're rotating, they're moving off of each other. There's a chemistry, there's a fluidity that we're seeing.
A real flow in the women's game now.
Yep, wing backs that are coming, that are getting so high that wide players or high players are coming inside. And then there's an overlap or an underlap and a combination, and the chemistry with three was remarkable.
We have some data now, very interesting data actually, on one-touch passes, Chris.
Yeah, so this is actually quite fascinating. We actually looked at the number of one-touch passes on average teams were making. And again, we have the three last World Cup data here. So in 2011, teams on average made 132 one-touch passes a game. That then reduced down in 2015 to 116. And now in this Women's World Cup, we're down to 108. Interesting, we also actually have the time on the ball. So this is the time it takes a player to take the first touch and then to release the ball with a pass. And really, the numbers are almost identical over the last three Women's World Cups.
Nadine, what's your take on that? Why do you think we're seeing this decrease?
Well, because I think it's not always the best first choice to play with one touch, right? And I think those stats, the very interesting part about those stats is that they also highlight that the player today can actually have two touches for the same amount of time spent on the ball that she would have used previously for one touch. That means her technique is by far better. She's way quicker on the ball and can still make the game safer, takes the right decision and waits for that moment, or takes that one touch more, but has more efficiency in her action. And I think that's something that really comes across well through Chris's stats.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is players are more confident, right? More confident and efficient with the ball. And sometimes playing one touch is a lack of confidence. But even our center backs, as we mentioned, and our wing backs are dribble penetrating. Midfielders are replacing wing backs now and creating overlaps with each other. So it's requiring one more touch, but they're being just as fast, just as efficient, and far less predictable.
I think it's a really interesting piece of data there, Chris. Thank you for that. Time to discuss one of the more, I suppose we could say, contentious subjects, winning the ball back. And we have some video to accompany this.
I think this is me, right? Okay, so here we have a good example of Italy. They turn the ball over. I'm going to let it play, and then I'll talk. They turn it over in this corner. We'll let it roll one more time, correct? Yeah. So the turnover, and then there's an immediate response. We saw this with almost every team, immediate effort to regain the ball, to compact that zone. You can see in that quarter of the field, almost all 10 players, even the Italians are all on the attacking side of the field. They win it, they play it forward, and a chance on goal. So we saw this with all the teams, this effort to immediately regain, with this mentality to win it in the attacking half. It was pretty impressive.
What is needed from a team to execute this tactic successfully and win the ball back, April?
Yeah, I think the first action has to be the immediate regain mentality. To defend, there's a phrase we use, defend going forward. Rather than retreating, denying, delaying, backing up, we defend going forward. We put pressure on the ball to move together. If I go, Nadine, you have to come with me. Or don't leave me alone out there by myself chasing those Italians. Or the Chinese in that video. So we go together, we go in waves, the midfield goes right in behind the forwards, the defenders are right in and proactive behind that. There's a big effort to intercept. There's a commitment mentally, physically, and there's a never quit and be brave mentality. Take risks up there to win it.
April's certainly right, it's the mindset, but there's also this one player in that moment that gives the signal to actually be as a team compact and directly go back into the situation. And it's also, I mean, if you regain the ball in this situation, you're just much closer to the opponent's goal, so you may as well also go for it all. It's less mentally and physically draining if you attack when the situation is still unorganized and tight. So I guess also a reason to go for this is the direct chance to score again, and Italy has shown this.
Yeah, and I should mention, really, Chris, we should mention that we're not saying every team played that high or pressed that high, right? We're saying that there was a concerted effort by the majority of coaches to immediately regain the ball. Some did it higher, some used triggers to press high, some pressed more in the midfield. We saw a lot of midfield pressing and sort of collective defending in the midfield. But again, regaining pretty high.
I think we had the average regain height of France was 50 meters, so just inside their own half for the tournament.
Yeah.
Shall I come on to this one?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, defensive line height.
Yeah, so for me, this is probably one of the most fascinating metrics we have for this presentation this morning. Is here we see the defensive line height. So this is the distance from your own goal line to your deepest defender, or the offside line. So on the top graph, we see in possession, and here we have all 24 teams from this tournament, and the average of the tournament was 35 meters when teams had the ball. So their offside line, their deepest defender, was 35 meters from their own goal when they had the ball. But now look where they are when they didn't have the ball. The average for the tournament was 2 meters further up the pitch, so they were actually at 37 meters. So for me, it's fascinating. When teams didn't have the ball, they were actually higher and further away from their own goal.
Yeah, that's a remarkable number. I think actually in the report, it actually says That's a remarkable number. But it really is so interesting to see that there's a 2-meter difference, really, and it's higher. And so, again, to my previous comments, they're pressing higher, they're regaining higher. The average, right, these are game average or tournament averages, is 2 meters higher. Remarkable.
Again, similar to what I just said, they stay high, they're closer to the goal. If the opponent is not able to play a long ball out, they're there. So also you may, attack is the best defense. Maybe we use that one for this example. It's probably not what we're used to in the men's game, but obviously, a useful approach for the women's game. And I think, again, also another indicator for just how confident the teams were across the World Cup.
I know we definitely saw this trend in the junior tournaments last year, the women's junior tournaments as well. So it's obviously within the women's game.
Yep. And what we didn't see is low blocks. We're not talking about low blocks, right? We're not talking about packing it in, retreating, denying, delaying, or riding out some of these wins. We're talking about teams and coaches. Again, credit to the coaches in the room and coaches that participated in this World Cup. The idea was to defend going forward, and what'd you just say? Defend?
Attack is the best defense.
Attack is the best defense.
Great, but really interesting insights with that, and that data especially fascinating there. Thank you for that, Chris. Now, I'm sure we can all agree there's nothing better than seeing a team under a relentless wave of attack, then countering that, and something we witnessed a lot of during this Women's World Cup tournament. And we can take a look now at attacking transitions. Again, beginning with some video for you.
Yep, we should have 2 clips here. Some great counterattacks. 1 pass. So here is Jamaica against Australia. The second Jamaica wins possession or knows they're going to win it, boom, she is up and her teammates are running max sprints in support in advance of the ball. What an amazing peel-off run by the 9 there. Actually, I think she was playing the 9 or the 10. And then Thailand, one of the most celebrated goals in this World Cup with cheers. 1 pass, they're in behind, the player speed dribbles, and nails it. So 2 examples of very direct counterattacks or attacking transitions. And we knew these moments would be big in this World Cup.
You predicted this. Why did you think that? Why did you think transitions would play such a vital role in this tournament?
I just think the transition moments, attacking and defending, are the great separators. They're the great separators between good players and great players, and good teams and great teams. And these are the moments we're going to see even more precision in the future, more finishing in the future.
Yeah, we do have another similar video for you.
Great goal.
Excellent execution.
Yeah. There we go.
Yes, here a similar situation, but not the same, because the difference here is they needed to play out. They needed to launch the transition, which they're now in, and also with probably also one of the nicest goals of the World Cup, with an excellent execution by England, scoring then after a really fast and well-played transition. But the key moment is here. There's no choice, so they need to have 2 passes to play out, take out 4 opponents with those 2 passes. And now they get ready to launch the transition, and then they are doing it very, very well.
What is needed from players in this specific situation, Nadine?
Well, I think first of all you've got to be patient, and you've got to have the overview of what is needed first to actually prepare the situation in a way that you then can go full pace into the transition. And what I think is also refers a bit to what April said. It distinguishes a very good player from a good player is that readiness to be really that switched on, that in that moment, so ready to directly go into the other direction. It takes more energy than you would think. Also from your mindset, from physical aspects, I think that's something that is really important for a player to be fully there.
It is, and it's an awareness of where you were before the ball was won, where is the opposition before the ball was won. And then sometimes that first touch can break the line, or the first pass can break the line. And once you pass the pressing and you get in behind him, you could see now the first player receiving that pass back to pressure, she had time and space.
There really is just so much to talk about, particularly with regards to the data, you know, coaching, playing. Literally we could sit here all day. However, you know, I really think that we'd like to hear from the both of you just in terms of, you know, what you took away from the Women's World Cup and players that really stood out for the both of you. I'd be very interested to hear that just from both your perspectives, because you both come from very different perspectives.
I think it was a World Cup certainly of outstanding players, and if we saw Rapinoe's completion, how complete she is as a player, and her matureness, her confidence, outstanding. If we saw Lavelle, that certainly brought a new spirit to the US team and also to women's football. Lucy Bronze, I mean, if you, I think I rarely have seen ever in my life a complete defender in terms of what she delivered and what she can perform on the pitch. I think there are many, but still I also have to say that I believe it was a World Cup of complete teams. We have never had such balanced, complete teams with outstanding players in there, but with actually many more. We really, it was a tough discussion always around this topic, and I think the last top 10, were all exceptional, but this World Cup has also shown more than those 10 that were exceptional. So the team performance and how those individuals fitted into that team performance was really what I would highlight.
So well said. You know, for me, it's the players that were recognized. We certainly will also, we have celebrated them. We may celebrate them again tomorrow night. There's a couple players that come to mind that weren't recognized, that maybe didn't make the actual technical report. It's just hard to talk about this World Cup without talking about how great Amandine Henry was. And she was amazing. And, you know, they ran into the United States in a Classico in the quarterfinals. But that was some of her performances and the way that she played the role of the six. Remarkable. And then I think about Sam Kerr for Australia. What a great player and a great year she's had, and how she carried Australia. And hard to have a World Cup since I have this moment to not have that World Cup and not mention her. And there were many other players. And actually, the goalkeeping was hard to pick. Zubi was fussing about the goalkeeping right till the end of it. Which of our goalkeepers were the best? Because we had so many good ones to choose from. And I'll have to reiterate what my colleague here, Nadine, said about the Dutch style of play and positional awareness. We had that style and that culture, and watching that come to life on the field. And then there's still the Japanese style. And having those two play each other in a Classico, I was at that game. That was remarkable. One of my favorite games was Argentina against Scotland. I mean, these were some great matchups. And I have to reiterate, it really was a World Cup of great teams.
How do you feel about the future of the women's game? You know, looking ahead to the next tournament, April. You know, what are you feeling?
Well, I'm an optimist, so always optimistic. And I think with the message we heard from our president, even more optimistic. And I leaned over and I lean in one direction because I have mostly a national team background, so I think about this national team league someday, and I think it's a fascinating idea. I'm good. I'm behind World Cup every 2 years, so I'm always pretty open-minded and optimistic, but I tell you, after this last World Cup and the way that the World Cup was embraced and accepted and respected from Europeans and the French in France, I'm super optimistic.
For me as well, I think I'm optimistic for our final tournaments, of course, but I'm also very optimistic for this game itself. I think the last couple of years, I hardly can believe of how fast everything has grown and like really how drastic it's changing. I think sometimes you need to pinch yourself and really open your eyes and realize we are actually already quite good. The FIFA president said the World Cup was not just a big event, it was one of the biggest football or sports events in the world. We are by far the biggest female sport. We have to also sometimes like put perspective into things, don't compare apple with pears, and say, okay, we can be actually quite proud of where we are, we're quite strong, but we have to go way, way further. And I think everything at the moment, from a FIFA level, confederation level, national associations level, or club level, is pulling those strengths together, and I think that's why we're really optimistic.
Fantastic. Great. Well, hopefully now we have a couple of questions from you. We have been asking you to submit them via the iPad. So the first question is to April, and this is from Hong Kong. So we really see more goals by heading and so by set pieces. Just read it as it is. How about defending high ball play or 1-versus-1 zone marking players? Marking is a point skill technique to work on, and that is from Ricardo.
Yeah, thank you, Ricardo. I think that's a really good point. You know, we here in these 45 minutes, we can't talk about all of it. Even the technical report doesn't address all the things that we observed during this World Cup. We did see some great zonal marking. Let's call it zonal marking. Some teams marked, some played zone, but whenever the ball arrives, it's zonal marking, right? So we saw that. I mentioned earlier about some of the great defending in the air. I mean, the Dutch center backs were great in the air. The English center backs were great in the air. These were teams that, for me, dominated the air and made it very difficult to play over the top of. Swedish center backs are always great in the air, and those Swedes are so hard to beat, and they're maybe the best in the box, right, defensively. So they made it to the Final Four, right? Absolutely. So we see that, Ricardo, and you know, maybe we'll be talking about wingback marking at the next conference. Who knows?
Zonal defending was indeed a tool in this World Cup, but if Wendy Renard comes and you just defend the zone, you're not going to get the header. So I think it's also something, of course, for special key players with such a technique and such a height, there's always also an individual, one-on-one defense that for certain times makes sense.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Ricardo, for that. We have a question next for Nadine. It's from New Zealand. Out of all the changes you've highlighted so far, what do you think was the most significant change from previous events? It's an interesting question.
I think the most significant change for me was the unpredictability of the football we saw. I felt like every team that went into that tournament thought, I can win the game. And that's how they played, that's how they behaved. I think it was so really exciting to just sit before the game, you could not really tell which direction it would go, and this shows of a sportingly very balanced composition. I think that's what really got me excited. What got normal people outside football excited. There were so many people that were discussing this World Cup. That was incredible. They never had to do anything with probably football and women's football, and they all of a sudden had an opinion and were excited, right? It's also quite telling when this happens. So the unpredictability of the games, and also just the daring attitude. I compared it a bit to the Women's Euro in 2017, where we rather had a defensive approach with many teams participating. So this wasn't the case here. It was really this direction.
Great.
Can I answer one?
Yeah, please do.
You didn't ask, but I'll offer.
There's another one for you.
A quick, short answer for me. It was positional fluidity and formation fluidity. Formation. We had teams playing one system in attack and another in defending. We had teams switching, of course, systems. But as I mentioned earlier, and some of the great video in the movement, the rotations, the chemistry of three and the way players are rotating and interchanging their actual positions, that was significant for me watching it.
It really stood out for you.
It did.
Great, we have another question for you.
Oh.
It's from US Virgin Islands. When do you start teaching heading to young girls? It's a really good question.
Yeah, I think US Soccer has led the movement in trying to be careful with their small brains and small skulls. So I believe it's at 12 years old, they can practice it, but they can't head in games yet. Somewhere around the age of 12, we have that legislation now and just protecting their heads. And then we can really start to do it from the hands initially and teaching them the proper technique, how to reach it, how to connect it. And we talk to players about where, because there's confusion, right, when they're really young. And at about somewhere between 12 and 14, I think at 14 you can start from the kick and teaching them that. I wouldn't do long punts or goal kicks until a player is 14, 15, 16 at a repetition, a lot of repetitions in practice, because not until about 18 is the skull and the brain fully developed. So steps, incremental steps.
Should have told my dad. He started doing that with me when I was 4. So
I was looking at your forehead.
you could see
you
it,
got
right?
a great forehead for heading. You do. Mine was small.
Just on that subject, I mean, this is from a personal perspective. I have a 3.5-year-old little girl. I'm very proud to be part of this event. And she is starting to play football now. She's not even 4. Yeah. Loves it, absolutely loves it. How important is it that we engage young girls at grassroots level, you know, at a really young age and get them really engaged in football? And are we doing enough to do that, do you think?
I think we need to do it more because I think the earlier confronted have access to football, the better is the chance that you fall in love with the game. And I think if you're in contact with this sport from such a young age onwards, you don't question if it's for boys or girls. You don't question if it's something you could do or not. I think you just do it. You kind of, you know, grow up with it. And I think it's really important that we share that message and have opportunities available for example, for your little daughter, if she doesn't want to play with boys, all right, but then there need to be an opportunity as well that she could just join a girls' team or have both options, and depending on how she feels, if she feels confident enough to go either way, yeah.
What do you think, April, about getting young girls involved at a very young age? How important?
We start them at 4 years of age. Yeah, there's little, 3v3 practice games at 4 and 5 and 6. So, yeah, I mean, you capture their attention, you put them out there with the ball, and they're just as happy could be. We all believe in sport, so getting young girls into sport earlier is a good thing.
The future of women's football.
Yes.
We do have another question. I believe it's for Nadine, and it's from Malta. If you had to opt to improve one aspect in the game for the future, which one would you go for?
That's a difficult one. Who was that?
Neck on the block.
Just one single aspect. Okay, I try to be concise. I think where we still can improve is the efficiency in the final third. So the final pass, the final execution, and really, perfectionizing the finish or the last pass to the finish. I think we often make a lot of efforts. We go long distance. If you look at the numbers, it's incredible how far the teams went in terms of distance and speed and effort. But sometimes I think we need to, be more cautious with our energy or use it more efficiently in terms of how do we reward ourselves in a situation where you have to score.
April, anything else to add there?
I was waiting. She nailed it. We don't have professional women's soccer at 16, 17 years of age like there is in the men's game. And so our players don't have the same repetitions. Our players don't have the same facilities or coaching or the opportunities, right? At younger ages. And so our finishing is lagging behind. But, you know, I don't want to end the World Cup on that note, because just watch the highlight video, click on those little buttons on the technical report, the TSG technical report, and you're going to see a lot of great women's football and great clips.
Well, I mean, it's just been such a privilege to have you both here on stage with us. Thank you very much for answering questions from the floor. Thank you for your questions. We are going to wrap up. We've gotten so much out of that, and there's still so much that we could talk through, but I'm afraid we're running out of time, so we're going to have to end it there. Thank you very much, Nadine Kessler and April Heinrichs. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for them.
Thank you.
And thank you also to Chris Loxton, providing all our performance data. Fantastic. So, it's time for a coffee break now, after which we are going to be talking about the World Cup holders, US, and Carol is going to be sitting down with Jill Ellis. If you could be back here for 12:30, that would be fantastic. Sorry. 11:30, I stand corrected. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
This game is a massive opportunity for Thailand to test themselves against the #1 team in the world. And it might fall here to Rapinoe! It's 9! It's a night to remember for the United States of America as they start their defence of the Women's World Cup title.
The USA are fresh from their record-breaking win against Thailand and in Paris today to face World Cup debutants Chile. Comes a shot and in! And Carly Lloyd makes World Cup history.
Turned in from close range. We have our quickest goal of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2019.
The United States of America have scored inside the opening 12 minutes of every single one of their games so far. It is a penalty. That is it. The defending champions are through to the quarter-finals.
Two of the giants of women's football, a galaxy of world-class players, a sellout crowd. One of the big hitters will exit the competition tonight. What a World Cup for Megan Rapinoe!
It's a brilliant cross. It's in. Press with a header. You cannot keep them out. Fabulous goal. That could be the save that sends the USA to the final. The United States have done it. Now only 2 remain. Who will be crowned the best team in the world today? Van Veenendaal, who's been brilliant so far. Penalty. It's 1-0. The face of the tournament scores the first goal of the final. Great goal! One of the breakthrough players has broken Dutch hearts for the 4th time. The United States of America are crowned champions of the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, football family, let's celebrate the champions now. And hear about the most successful women's team in international women's soccer. I think that the perfect individual to tell us what it is behind their great success is one who coached this team, the United States women's national soccer team, for 5 years. Please welcome to the stage now, Coach Jill Ellis.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. So good to have you as part of this wonderful conference.
Put that down there in case that's not a sponsor.
And a reminder, yes, just a reminder that we want you to get involved. So once again, use those iPads, send us your questions, and at the end of the session as well, there's an opportunity for you to give us your feedback. So please, can you do that as well? Welcome. What a moment. What a tournament.
Yes, it was... I mean, it was one of a kind. I know it was the second for me personally, but it was just an amazing, amazing showcase of women's football. And I do just want to take a second and congratulate and honor everybody in this room that's elevating our game, because we just saw the technical report and the numbers don't lie. I mean, our sport is exciting, it's energizing, and more teams are playing. And the fact that we're going to have more teams in the next World Cup is outstanding. So congratulations to everybody in the room.
Oh, yes. Round of applause. You know, Jill, you're one of just 2 coaches in both the men's and women's game to win 2 World Cups. Any key learnings from this that you really took, looking back at the 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup and in terms of your preparations for the 2019 edition?
Yeah, I mean, they were very different because I had a lot less time in preparation for the 2015 World Cup. But I think my biggest takeaways moving forward out of that one was... you know, I know certainly just managing the tournament in terms of 7 games in that period of time, I felt like coming out of it, it was important that we continue to grow and develop our depth of our players. I felt like we would need, as the game was getting faster and faster and, you know, the numbers are getting higher, I think it was just really important for us to establish depth was coming out of that. And then I think the other thing was we just, you know, we experienced a lot of different teams coming out tactically, adjusting tactics during the game. I think we were a pretty rigid team in that tournament. I think we were very static in terms of the system we played. We were very committed to it. But I think moving forward, I realized, especially after the 2016 Olympics, that we really had to have a team that was built to meet the evolving demands of the game. And I think and the final thing, going through one World Cup for the next, is just tune out the noise, you know. It's just keep your head down, stay focused, and the task at hand.
And like you say, the evolution of women's football as well has been rapid in recent times.
It has. I mean, I think you just see it in Europe. I mean, the teams now that are competing, the events that are happening for women's football. You know, we have 2 tournaments we host, but just around the world, just the growth of it is remarkable, and the level of play is just it's unreal. I mean, it certainly was. You know, I said before 2015, and this is going to be the hardest World Cup to win because they had more teams. But no doubt, 2019 was much harder, and credit to most of the people out there.
One of your mantras is iron sharpens iron. Explain that.
Yeah, I mean, iron sharpens iron. I mean, obviously, iron is a very hard metal, and the only way you sharpen it is by playing. You know, in terms of the metaphor, is to play teams that are going to challenge you and stretch you. So coming out of the Olympics, I asked my bosses, I said, I want to play the most competitive schedule, because the only way we get better, that we find out about our weaknesses, and at times that we fail and grow from that, is by playing, you know, outstanding competition. So yeah, we played, you know, the top teams in the world. We hosted the, you know, She Believes tournament. We built those after this tournament, after 2015, because we just wanted to attract good teams and play good teams. And I think the final piece of that is, you know, our actual training environment. Oftentimes, you know, when our players, we have inter squads and we play against each other, I say, you know, it's 2 of the best teams in the world playing against each other. So just that constant competitiveness at our training just sharpens us. So that's kind of where it comes from.
It was quite intensive. I mean, you're talking about the most competitive schedule, playing some of the best teams in the world in the build-up to it. 30 international friendlies. And in fact, there, you face 17 out of the 24 teams in the FIFA Women's World Cup. It doesn't get better than that in terms of preparation.
No, I mean, I was, you know, as the game has grown, I think so much of it is making sure your teams are used to all the different styles, all the different nuances of the game out there. You know, playing Japan is very different than playing Australia. And so I wanted our team to be, you know, exposed to all the challenges that we would face. We knew we would play teams from every continent. So in our build-up, we wanted to make sure we played those. I mean, the 2 most important games that that I fought to get on my schedule, because I said to my bosses, we have to go play France in France. And then we wanted to play Spain because we'd never played them. And they're a team that you have to experience them to really understand. So I think we really, in our preparation and our planning and our build-up, it was just to have our players prepared for all elements of the game that we were going to see.
I know that a lot of federations, I certainly know that, like for South Africa, for example, that's something that we wanted to do more of in the build-up to the World Cup. But in terms of scheduling and just trying to, you know, work this out with some of these great teams, it became a little bit difficult. Do you think maybe for your team it was easier because, I mean, world champions and the kind of reputation that you've built through the years?
Yeah, I mean, no question. I think that, you know, first of all, it comes down to resources. And, you know, we are blessed to have a lot of resources that enable us to travel, enable us to bring teams to our shores. So I think that's definitely a benefit of it in terms of just our ability to play so many different teams. You know, I think the fact that teams are inviting other countries to come to their shores and play, it's important. It's very different to play an African nation than it is to play an Asian country. So I think just having our players exposed to those elements is critical.
Take us back to France 2019, and when you look at your lead up to that final, there were some really tough games, some really tough teams. Sweden being one of those, Spain, of course France, England. How do you prepare your team for such a difficult road to the final?
Well, I think kind of, you know, just to my comment earlier, I think it's just, you know, making sure you're playing these teams. As I said, you know, we wanted to get France on our schedule because what I knew is, you know, when we play at home, obviously we get a big home crowd, and it's so different to play on the road. So I felt like in the 6 months prior to the World Cup, we had to go to France. You know, I said to my team, I want them to experience feeling booed, because it's just such a different sensation when you're out there and you're not the favorite team in terms of with the crowd. So we went there, we played in France, got beat, and I think that was probably one of the best things that happened to us. I said to the players afterwards, listen, we're not close to our best. We were just beginning our preseason. We've just played an incredible team, but we will see them again and we will be better. And then playing Spain, like I said, that was just really important because they're just a very unique team and get into a very big shape. And I think it's one thing watching a team on film. It's another thing to actually play and experience them. So playing 2 European teams in Europe, I think, was a massive part of our preparation in terms of being ready. But yeah, I think it was an incredibly hard road. The teams out there are just so good.
Yeah, and also just like acclimatizing to the different conditions as well.
Yeah, just feeling, being the underdog almost when you're on the road. I mean, I knew our game in Parc des Princes, it was like no other game I've experienced, but I think going to France helped us prepare for that, hearing the Marseille fans screaming that. I think it's a different sensation. But yeah, I think travel is key, adjusting to the flights, the times, the everything. We actually went to Tottenham prior to going over to France, and just breaking that trip up, because we ended up being on the road, I think, almost close to 60 days.
Wow.
So I think just breaking that trip up was important as well, just in terms of maximizing that.
I want us to go back to in-game specifics and take a look at some of the highlights of how it is that the U.S. national women's team actually performed in France. Let's take a look at this clip first, and then we'll discuss it. So this is an interesting one, just taking a look at some of the goals of the national women's team. And this is the thing, though. You managed to score within the first 12 minutes of every single match, except, of course, that final. What was the key behind this? Take us through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a large part, and I think the technical committee did a great job of kind of representing that, and I think the statistics up earlier, just the advantage of scoring early. In terms of preparing our team for this, I mean, April alluded to it, start fast, finish strong's kind of been our mantra. And for the players, just being on the front foot psychologically and really taking that aggressive posture, I think, you take advantage of a team that's perhaps already experiencing some anxiety. We had a lot of veterans on our team, and I think that helps the nerves. So I think when you can pounce on a team that early in a tournament, in a game, it now makes that team always have to now chase the game, and then they open themselves up a little bit more in terms of our ability now to transition against them. So it was just part of our goal was to always start a game aggressively. But one of the things people sort of said this in the final, we scored late, but I said to the players, if we win in the 89th minute, that's fine too. It's just making sure we'll persist through it. But yeah, I mean, it was some fantastic starts, and a lot of that is just the mindset and the mentality of coming out and really putting the opponent on its back foot.
Wow. When you look at the makeup of the team as well, finding balance is always very important, and bringing in those younger players, but also the role of the senior players. How important is that?
I mean, it's critical. I think when I looked at 2019, because we had quite a period where we went and looked for new players, like I said, to build on the depth. And I always had in my head, a magic number. If a player had 30 caps going into a World Cup, they'd have enough experience under their belt to be someone we could lean on in the tournament. But then you add to that just, Carly Lloyd, I think it was in our 4th or 5th World Cup. It's critical. So what those players give you is, at times when a young player comes in, I'll tell them, hey, sit with a veteran, listen to their story, because it's never been like this, listen to their scars, so they can really kind of appreciate, the journey itself. So having those players that can, mentor a little bit, be composed. I think people genuinely, and, Megan Rapinoe's excitement and energy for our France game, it was infectious. And that rubs off on the younger players. So I think not only are they mentoring them off the field, I think just the way they carry themselves on the pitch is inspiring.
And then when you look at a young player like Rose Lavelle, for example, and picking her over some of the veterans, if you'll say, that was a very key decision, wasn't it? How do you manage to control such a deep bench and the players that play less time? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, and a lot of the coaches in the room know this. Managing big players is a part of the journey. So I think the first part, in terms of managing a deep bench, we definitely had a strategy in terms of making every single player on that 23 that we took feeling important. So, for example, when we put up our starting 11, the night before, and then we would list instead of calling them reserves, we'd actually call them game changers. And we talked to that group a lot about being ready for that moment to come in and step in. When we would break down the game the following day, when we would do sort of our dissection of the game, when I started every single presentation, I actually showed images not of the goals being scored, but actually of the bench celebrating those goals. Because it was just a messaging of making sure all those players understood that it will take everybody, that everyone was of value, that everyone was needed. Certainly in the Chile game, the ability to play, a different group, that's because the whole time leading up to this, we'd made sure those players had gotten the experience. A player like Rose Lavelle, she became important because she's a player that, as you saw, she can operate in tight spaces. I mean, she's a tremendous player. She gives us a slightly different dimension. I think when we looked at our midfield and we built our midfield, it was really looking at different profiles of players in there. And Rose was very unique. And so her pairing with Ertz and Mewis just gave us a nice blend of talent in there. And that's the beauty of what you get when you have a deep bench, is you can really start to mix the pieces, and then you can pull different pieces, almost like different tools from the bench when you need it.
When you were visualizing how it is that you're going to navigate your way through the competition all the way to the final, there were some key factors that you were going to be absolutely critical to you getting that desired result. I want us to take a look at another clip, and then we'll discuss the way that you played here.
Yep. Yeah, this was our attacking transition clip, so I'll just let it play through. And that's obviously Rose on the ball. I mean, her ability to run at teams. Yeah, so go ahead and run that again. So, I mean, I'd mentioned earlier that, transition was such an important part. And, just our mentality. So here we pick up the first ball, and just our moment to be able to solve that pressure immediately. And, constantly we talk about breaking lines, about playing forward. So this is an indirect transition. So we solve pressure. You can go ahead and let it run. Solve pressure. And find Rose. And then our another philosophy, have space, take space. She runs at the player. And then Rapinoe, you can see on the weak side, just opens up her run to create the width. And then obviously a fantastic weighted pass through there, fantastic timing in terms of get in. But, those moments, those transition moments, because teams were so much better organized tactically, defensively, such limited space that you just had to capitalize on those moments when they're out of shape. And obviously capitalize and score goals.
How do you go about preparing a team for that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we mentioned when we train is, even in training environments, that, transition, defending or attacking, it was making sure, so even if we were in a small-sided activity, if we were in a larger activity, it was always making sure that those moments were highlighted. And when we present the game to the team, we basically talk about attacking, organized, attacking, transition. The final third is kind of different, same, defending, organized, defending, transition. So there were actually, moments and elements that we would showcase in video. We'd obviously train and work on. Just in terms of our transition, making sure every channel is filled, making sure a player can commit a player before they release the ball. So it's all training.
The team really is a family, isn't it? The technical team, the players, we've been around together for quite some time. Tell us about this day-to-day environment and how you manage to keep it a good environment.
Yeah, I mean, we were together a lot. I think it's a lot about the individuals that you have. I credit my staff and the players. I think the ability to adapt being on the road is a mindset in and of itself. But in terms of, I think with our staff, it was, I think just making sure that our staff had clarity in what their role was. And I think another big thing for me personally is making sure our staff, they're empowered. They're experts at what they do. It's trusting them to be able to do their role. So I think when you have a group of people around you that are motivated, that enjoy what they're doing, that feel they're valued and contributing to the whole, I think that sets a good tone. With the players, it's making sure you balance that, those times where you have to, push a little bit and go hard, and then obviously the days off, and what do you do in those days off? I think when you have a senior group, it is important to give them obviously some parameters where they have choices. So, you know, on a day off, it's giving them options to do certain things, because I think if it's too controlled, too restricted, especially with my players, I think, they go crazy. So that balance is important, so you can even almost have time away. And I think sometimes in our federation did this, and I know this, we were really lucky at times, is having players have their own room and their own space in some of our trips. Not all of them, but occasionally they would do that. So, I think, and then just as the leader of the group, it's finding that balance and making sure that people understand when we've got to push really hard and when we can sort of take our foot off the gas in terms of just, enjoying being with each other, going for a meal out and such.
I want you to tell us a little bit more about that importance of that support staff and their roles pre and post match.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dawn's here. I mean, she's the rock star. She should be up here. I think the medical team, the analytical team, the sports performance team, we don't do anything without them. So in terms of just the communication and what things happen, it was everything from, we would have them in our planning meetings. So when we looked at our substitution patterns and who could do what in terms of minutes, we had our medical team in there. We had our sports performance, sports scientist Dawn in there. So just their ability before a game to give information, to share information, to have us really understanding what we're dealing with was critical. Everything from nutrition to, these guys know the deal. But then post-game, and then obviously in the analytic team, it's making sure everything's happening during the game. So when we get off the field, we have access to our information, to our data, to our clips, to our video. And then, Dawn does a whole regimen post-game, and the team, obviously, massage therapists, all these guys. I mean, we have a tremendous support staff, and the players will give full credit to them as well, because, I mean, we went through that tournament and we had, I think, one player miss a game, and that was it. And that's pretty remarkable in terms of just the preparation that goes on, even in our periodization months before getting us to that point. It's props to them.
Wow. Tell us about the emphasis. How much did you emphasize your own analysis as opposed to analyzing the opposition?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me personally, it's a balance. I think with our players, I mean, obviously as the coaching staff, we do a lot in terms of trying to break down our opponent. But for the players, it's then deciding how much do you share and that percentage, because you want to, psychologically, you want to make them feel that, either our opponent will adapt to us, or we're in a good enough position with what we're doing to be able to manage the game. So, in terms of presenting to the team, it was obviously, again, giving them information in those buckets, attacking, transition, organized, and final third, both sides of the ball. We would showcase a couple of key players to them. But what we ended up doing was we merged the scouting report and the game plan together. So some teams do it separately. We actually merged them together so that a lot of times the clips we would show on our opponent, we would be able to emphasize the key points that we wanted to bring out. So it was really the players could see it through their eyes in terms of what they were going to see. But, again, it was just, I think, our players, for me personally and for our players, I think, preparation gives us confidence. So it was always very respectful in terms of our rhythm and our routine and how we do things to prepare for any opponent regardless.
There were times when we saw a change in shape in your team. And I want us to take a look at this clip, and then you can take us through it.
Yep. Well, I need my glasses on this one. Oh, yeah. So this was, we dropped into a back five in this game. And it was just, I mean, really, it's just a strategy or a tool in terms of just being able to solve it. And what we were trying to do was to make sure we always had numbers central and we could get pressure on the ball and the flanks. And I think, you can kind of see in this clip, it just gives us a lot of stability to have three central in the box. Here it is again. And it allows us to be very aggressive with our outside backs to rotate out hard and obviously stay safe central. So more a defensive tactic. It was actually something we started to train probably almost a year ago. We call it our closeout shape. So it's closing out a game when you just know teams are going to come at you hard in terms of being able to serve the box. And then we always obviously have players higher to be able to have a transition and to be an outlet. We actually scored some goals out of this shape. So part of it, when we talked to the players, it was also a shape that we could adjust out of and get our wide players higher quicker as well in terms of an outlet. So, yeah, it was a defensive strategy. primarily, but again, it created a lot of transition moments for us because it's so hard to break down. We got numbers central, numbers wide, and it allowed us to stay very compact. So we played, I think, when we were playing in Parc des Princes, we just knew, that, just the energy of the crowd was phenomenal, and just that wave after wave. So we adjusted to it, at times earlier than we probably wanted to. But you've got to obviously manage the game, and I think this is where our team took steps from 2015 in terms of just being able to layer in tactical flexibility in what we did, and it paid off.
So part of your strategy, and obviously happened in moments when the team was ahead.
Sorry?
It happened when the team was ahead, when the team was leading, as you said, just to try.
Yeah, obviously trying to, just make sure. I think game management. I think most coaches will tell you being able to manage those moments in a game, knowing what the game gives you, knowing where the spaces are. I think one of the things, and this is a credit to our opponents, is we would present potentially what we saw as a scouting report, but always preparing the players for the flexibility of our opponent to be able to change and shift. When we went to Tottenham, we actually sort of scouted, we prepared we called it our World Cup opponent. So it was out of a 4-2-3-1, but you got a lot of the elements of the teams that we were playing, whether they play with a double pivot or a single pivot, and it was just having the players prepared for any moment, what they'd seen. I think they would say, arguably, we were probably the most prepared we've ever been for a tournament. Yeah.
Even prepared for the unknown.
Yeah. There's only two ways teams transition from you: indirect, direct, and so it's just managing, those moments and what does it look like and what's our roles and responsibilities within our shape and within the moment of the game. We trained, we played against a boys team in Tottenham, and they were fantastic in terms of giving us. We'd have them shift in a 30-minute period through a bunch of different scenarios, and just our ability to adapt and adjust to that in the game.
You look at the average age of your players at the World Cup, all-time high. So 26 years, 6 months. You, without a doubt, were the most experienced team in terms of that.
That's a kind way of saying
average age for the US, average age of 29 years. So what does this say? What does this mean for the team?
I think, like I said before, I think when you have a player going into that environment, like people would ask me about my roster when I picked it, and at that point, when you're going into a World Cup, you're not picking for development, you're picking to win. And so there was a couple of, I knew one of our players going in, Kelly O'Hara, had been dealing a lot with ankle issues, and so there was a little bit of, not fragility, but I wasn't sure. So I ended up bringing Krieger back in because I wanted that experience. And the thing about the spotlight is it can burn you, right, if you're inexperienced. So it was bringing in players that I'd been in the trenches with, I knew could manage those big moments. So that's where you tend to lean on the experience. I also think even our younger players, I think this team was actually a really good blend of newer players that we'd invested in for the past 3 years to try and get them up to speed. So I think some of the other teams, I think now, World Cups before, you saw a lot of younger players playing. But as the game is evolving and teams are investing in their teams, now it's probably harder now for a 16, 17-year-old to make a senior team, in most countries in the world, because there's a lot more evolution of the game, and it's harder to knock those players off if they're sitting in there with all that experience.
So if you could give advice to some of the other federations, it would be that placing a lot of emphasis on the more experienced players.
At the end of the day, you pick the most talented players for sure. Age doesn't have a limit on that. So I think it's certainly picking the most talented players, regardless of age. But I also think that as you start to grow and you have youth teams at lower levels, some federations maybe only have 3 age groups. Well, now if they have 4, you're slowly bringing players up. We do, I think, a really good job in our country of pushing players along when they're ready. But going into a World Cup, there's no substitute for experience to that moment when, again, the stomach gets tight and the spotlight's bright. You've got to make sure players can deal with that.
You look at how you had to reconstruct your team, as it were, from 2015 and 2019. When you look at those rosters, only 4 players from 2015 starting from that starting 11 started in the 2019 final. Okay. So what challenges were there in that reconstruction?
Yeah, it was, I think most teams kind of go through this, at least you have to. Coming out of 2015, we had some players retire and some players, we needed to move on. I think it was actually in the 2016 game against Sweden. They were, they sat very low on us, very compact, and it just made me realize that the profile of player and where the game was trending that we needed for 2019. For sure, you need athleticism, you need mentality, but you also need players that can operate in tight spaces. And so what I did coming out of 2016 was to, and it was hard. It was hard on the players. It was hard on us. I told the players it didn't matter how many caps you had at that point. It didn't matter how many medals you had. We were really going to expand our roster in terms of numbers. And so I'd say for about a year there, we pushed some players, aside a little bit. We pushed some players in a corner. We made the veterans uncomfortable. Were they pissed off? Yeah, I'm sure they were. But it's part of that. I just felt as part of that growing process that we had to go to find a Rose Lavelle, to find a Sammy Mewis, to get Abby Dahlkemper. We had to find players that now, again, could complement our technical players, but could really facilitate and operate in the game. And that's why players, like Rose and Sammy sort of came into our roster. But it was not easy. I mean, I think, a lot of coaches, when you go through it, it sometimes costs you your job. I think having won in 2015, the Federation stood by me. 2016, it was a very big disappointment. And it was at that point that I decided, almost like you do with your computer, you need to reboot. So we rebooted and we went through a lot of growing pains. And it was great because I think coming out of it, those players were the ones that survived that run, and just we were stronger on the backside.
When you look at 2015 and 2019, is that gulf in class, in terms of all of the different teams, is it getting narrower and narrower? Was it more difficult for you to defend the title this time around?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think, World Cups are just incredibly hard. But I think, yeah, the level of sophistication now in our opponents, it's an all-time high. The level of athleticism is an all-time high. I mean, I grew up in England and back in the day, and we didn't even have women's football, and to see where they are with just the mentality. To me, to win a World Cup, you need three things. You need, obviously, the athleticism. I think you need the tactical proficiency in there, and you need athleticism. And I think now more and more teams have those. I think the mentality of our opponents was outstanding. I think they didn't back down. They really came at us. And now add to that the tactical sophistication. I think it was very hard. And that's, again, a credit to the growth of the game and where we are.
You talk about the resources that you have in the United States for the women's game,
yep.
The experience that you have as well. For some of the newer federations, yes, you're saying it's very tough. It's going to get even tougher. Next FIFA Women's World Cup, more teams being added. So for those federations that are lagging behind, look at my team, South Africa, that was featuring in its first FIFA Women's World Cup ever. What more needs to be done for them to catch up to the kind of success and progress that you're making?
I think, I think personally, and I think our president talked about this, FIFA president, it has to happen at the highest level. You have to have people believing in that, because they're the ones that distribute the resources, they're the ones that make the hiring, they're the ones. And so I think that is, that is really, really important, that the leadership of a federation sees just what an amazing showcase that World Cup was, and they get on board with providing the resources. The ability to go and travel and play other teams. I mean, some of our opponents, haven't played. That we just played recently hadn't played since April, and there can't be these massive, huge gaps if we really want the game in countries to develop. So, putting resources in where teams play regularly, putting resources in coaching development. I think all those things will lend itself to a better game. Not every federation is going to have or not every country is going to have a domestic league. I think that's critical too. But supporting players' abilities to go and play in other leagues, I think all of that is very important to kind of, bring those countries along.
Okay. Well, Jill, we've got some questions for you that have been sent through via the iPad. So we'll go to our first question from Finland. Congratulations, Jill, and the US team. What would be your advice to other countries? How to build the confidence like your team had on the field? Is it culture, high performance behavior, physical ability? Is there a key factor for this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, the environment we create within our team is in itself, it's very competitive. Once you name a roster, then you obviously move forward to building cohesion and chemistry. But I think people are surprised when they come out and actually watch us train, just the intensity with which we train. And in that environment, ultimately, does it sort people out in terms of where they fall out? Yes, it does, because only the strong enough can survive in there. So just the culture you create around your team and the competitiveness is one thing. But, you know, I think ultimately it's our country is just so behind our sport, and that allows us to have a lot of players playing, which then in turn allows us to have a lot of choices. And that's why, you know, we can have such a deep roster. But I think overall our players are just well vetted in playing against, you know, players of high caliber because of our training environments.
Okay. Thanks for that question. Do we have another one? Yes, from Zambia.
Yes, great question.
Nutrition.
Not for me personally, but yes, definitely for my team. Yeah, I mean, we had, you know, our sports scientist, Dawn, she worked with a nutritionist. We were fortunate enough to have a chef on this trip. So we spared no expense on that part of it because we do think it's critical. You know, it's the fuel for the players. Everything from pre-game to post-game. What we give to the players, what we put in their bodies, and then buying into it. So I think nutrition is critical. I think honestly, in terms of just the education of where we are in our sport and in our game, I think it's come a long way, and recognizing the importance of that for sure.
We've got another question. This one from CONCACAF. What's next for you? Game can't lose a female leader like you. What's the legacy you want to leave?
I'm gonna come work with you, Karina. That'll be good. Yeah, I mean, right now, I'm going to sort of serve. I got 2 more games, and then I'll be serving sort of as an ambassador for our program. But I'm not sure actually what comes next. I think I got some good advice from somebody who said when you kind of go through something, pause and then sort of just, you know, don't jump at the first thing. Just sort of take some time to really kind of collect myself. So I haven't really decided, but you know, I know I won't be far from the game because it's just my passion. It's where my friendships are. It's given me so much that I can't imagine being far from it.
Yeah, we can't lose you. We like that. Poland, how do you lead a team full of top players?
Well, I know I have, you know, I say this politely, but obviously I have extroverts and I have introverts. And I think as a coach, it's making sure that everybody in your team has an opportunity to be themselves. I think that's critical. When you're on the road, you become like a family. And just like you guys sit at home and you talk to your family about politics, about social issues, we don't shy away from that environment. You know, the players are free to talk about things. So I think having us feel comfortable in our own environment is important. It's certainly the communication. I think, you know, my style is pretty direct. It's making sure there's not really any gray areas in setting sort of expectations and roles and responsibilities. But yeah, I think the players at this level and we all understand that everything is about the team. And if you have that culture that everything is about the team first, you can have players, you know, be flamboyant, be outspoken. But when we come into our environment, everything is about the performance. And you know, I got asked a lot, you know, how did you deal with a player having a friendly conversation with your president, right? And I just, you know, I said, actually, as a leader, if anything spilled over and would affect performance, it's at that point you step in. But you know, that actually, you know, at times can galvanize you. And I think our capacity to just be very professional and keep the focus in the environment was huge.
Here's another question from Uganda. Farida Bulega, the national women's coach in Uganda, saying, what's your source of motivation? How do you manage to keep your players motivated all the time?
Yeah, I think, you know, I said to the players when I announced that I was stepping down, I think ultimately it's not about the medals, it's not about the matches, it's about the moments, right? And it's those moments that make you feel alive. It's those moments that just, the emotion comes out of you. That's really what the game has given me, besides, you know, amazing friends. It's just, it's feelings. So I think for me personally, being around the game and just, you know, it's a roller coaster. And I said to my players also, I've embraced the highs and the lows. I think they're both equally as important on this journey. So I think that, you know, the motivation for me to lead a team, to be around this has been very easy. I think for the players, like I said, they have to be strong to be in our environment. But there's just a culture of success. We have a tremendous tradition. The coaches that came before, the players that came before, they're just fantastic in terms of setting the bar very, very high for us. So we're just always trying to reach for that.
Awesome. This question from Spain, in what ways will your team improve in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in 2019, we certainly... I think we really engineered the team to play to our strengths, so the shape itself, even that. So I think it's making sure we, again, play to our strengths in terms of our personalities. You know, we have fantastic wide players to be isolated. But I think, you know, the growth of us tactically is still where I think we're going to push. I think technically as well, we have, you know, I think every team, you have a full gamut. And I think, you know, I think Nadine mentioned it. I think that the decision about the final pass, our quality in the goal zone in that area, I think that's where we need to continue to grow as well. You know, we create a lot of chances, but being even more clinical in there, being even better how to get in there with the weight of the pass. I think we have to improve in those areas. But I think just, you know, just continuing to grow. I think defensively, we did some good things. But yeah, we're always looking to continue. One of the things when I started with this team, I said to them, I was like, it's, you know, we have this quote, even if you're on the right track, if you sit there, you'll get run over. And it's so very true. You know, even if you're moving in the right direction, you can't sit still. You've got to continue to push and evolve, or else, you know, the game will pass you by. Your opponents will pass you by.
Keep moving.
Yep.
Yeah. This question from Zimbabwe. Tell us the role of your performance team.
Well, I think Dawn's here, and she's someone I would defer to Dawn in terms of sports performance, sports science. But, you know, I was somebody that, you know, I wasn't brought up in that, and I've learned to appreciate and educate myself, and with Dawn, just the importance of sports science. I think it's, I think where Dawn and I work really well together is, you know, sometimes the eyes can tell you things and the gut can tell you things, and then also you can look at the data and you can match that in terms of feedback. You know, I just think, you know, knowing the right load to do in what point in the game, where you are in a tournament, I think all those things are critical. I think we would have, you know, an hour-long meeting just in our substitution strategies. What if this happened, this happened, this happened? And I think knowing just where our players were in terms of their ability to push, I think was huge as well.
Look at this one from St. Kitts and Nevis. How important is coaching, education, and mentorship in the creation of a world-class team?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. I mean, I think you know, I was back in the day, and April can attest to this. You know, I was the only female on all of my courses I took. I think that's changing. I think it's so important that people go out there. It's not just about, does a license make you a fantastic coach? No. But what it says is I'm prepared to continue my education. I'm prepared to continue to evolve. So I think, you know, and you meet people and you learn things and you grow from being on those. So I think coaching education is really important for somebody's development and growth. And yeah, sorry, the question went away. Now I can't think about the rest of it. But
yeah, sports science.
Yeah,
the role
sports
of your
science.
team.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
This one, I can relate to this as well. Your advice, this question from the Cayman Islands, your advice to small countries that have a smaller pool of players to keep the motivation.
Yeah, I think that's a great question because they don't have probably as much competitiveness to make a roster and such. You know, I think it's creating an environment. You know, people sort of say, how do you manage your players? I think you can always create, even though potentially you don't have a big pool, you can always create a competitive environment within your structure, and that, you know, I think that naturally brings out players' motivation. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's keeping score. It doesn't matter if it's you know, making sure it's something that's going to challenge them within the game. I think you've got to constantly push players. When you deal with elite people or elite players, they're never going to be satisfied right here. They're always looking for what's next. So, you know, if you're doing an activity, it's making sure that you're, you know, setting a standard for them that they're going to try and push and strive for. I think that's keep people motivated.
Wow. Okay, thank you all so much for your questions to Jill Ellis. And a reminder now that you can give us your feedback as well on this session. That was insightful. What an honor. Thank you so much, Jill.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
You're a fantastic ambassador for the game. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Wow. All right. So while we think about all of those wonderful nuggets that we received from Jill, lunch will be served. So enjoy lunch, and yeah, we'll enjoy that for about an hour. Let's be back here to continue with this fantastic program and hear from more coaches that are joining us from all over the world at 1:15. Thank you all.